everyone, welcome to Cycles of Life podcast. I hope you're well. So my name is Jana and I'm a life coach, a meditation teacher and human profession and L&D professional with over 10 years experience in kind of coaching and leading and mentoring. Welcome. Today's actually just a bonus episode, another very quick solo episode. It has a bit of an unusual for my podcast topic, I would say. Today I actually want to talk about grief. So some of you might know if you follow me on social media, on Instagram, and if you haven't, I think you should. But actually 3 years ago, my mum died. It was in April, a few days ago. So today is the 19th when I'm recording this, and my mum died on the 16th of April. And it was a very quick process, I will explain in a second. But I just wanted to really talk today about how different our relationship with grief can be, because often people think that grief kind of almost has like this mold, and it's so unique and it's so personal and it's so different from person to person. So I suppose today I just wanted to really share my experience, not as a life coach, maybe not as learning and development professional, not as a trainer, but just as a human being, and how different it probably has been compared to some other people when it comes to grief, when it comes to losing a parent, losing someone who's very close to you. So yeah, if you find this subject a bit difficult, maybe skip this episode. I will be talking about cancer quite a lot, so if this is something that you don't want to be hearing about now, which is absolutely fine, just let's catch up in the next episode instead, which I think will be very exciting because I'm doing a fantastic interview coming up next. But anyway, so I just wanted to touch on grief really. So as I said, it's been 3 years now since Mum died, and just to kind of paint you the picture a little bit, so she was diagnosed with cancer in February, and by mid-April, she passed on. So it was an incredibly quick process. It took about 7 weeks between getting a diagnosis and Mum dying, which is, I think it's quite quick. So it was a very traumatic, obviously, of course it was, process. And yeah, my sister and I, it's just two of us, so we've been all in. We're in the hospital every other day, kind of supporting Mum, taking her out for dinners, taking her out for lunches, looking after her, and obviously being there to the very end, basically. But what is really interesting and what's quite unexpected when I talk about it is, I think, so anyway, of course, it's just my own opinion, is that I don't actually miss my mum. And I know it might sound odd, and it feels weird to say that because it goes against everything that we've been conditioned to say and think. But actually, we always had really complicated relationships. I'm not going to go into details because it's not really just my story to tell. There's a few other people who are involved, and I don't want to kind of talk about their private lives. But yeah, it's always been a very complicated relationship. Mum basically left when I was 15, so I lived by myself with my younger sister since I was 15 years old, and then obviously I moved countries. So yeah, as you can imagine, there's a lot of baggage there. So it's never been really that easy. So when she died, actually, and again, it was actually a relief, and it feels really weird to say that because I know a lot of people, it just goes against what we kind of been taught to believe, taught to think. Because the dying process, like the whole illness, was just so traumatic. It was, the best way to describe it is actually, I was talking about it the weekend with my partner. The best way to describe it is when at every turn, at every kind of pivotal moment during her illness, we were getting the worst case scenario every single time. So anytime you would think, oh, there's gonna be some hope, like I have some hope, there might be some good news. There weren't. Every time there was the worst possible news. So that was the hardest part, is getting constantly that air knocked out of your lungs. And you think, oh, things will go up, but they never do. So every time it just gets worse and worse, obviously, until she left us. So obviously I was exhausted through those 7 weeks, myself and my sister and kind of people surrounding us, is really, really challenging to go through these things. So part of relief, of course, was because of that. So the process was over. Didn't necessarily have to drive for 2 hours every day, 3 hours actually every day, to go to hospital there and back. I could kind of move on with my life, start thinking about myself again. But also because relationships just been so hard. I feel like my entire life I've just been I've been trying to prove to my mom, my parent, that I'm worthy of love. And actually, that's just impossible, is it? And I think I've read a lot of books. I went to therapy even to kind of really try to unpick that, because I think that was the hardest part for me to realise that actually you can earn somebody's love. It's just impossible. And actually the love that we sometimes desire is not what the person is capable of giving us. And that was it. As simple as that. What I needed, she could have never given me. And that's okay. It's just the way it is. Yeah, it's just a part of my story. So I just really want to touch on this because, as I said, I think there's probably a bit of a stigma as well. Maybe it's just in my head, but when it comes to grief, and the grief kind of looks similar, but actually it doesn't. People feel very differently about it. Obviously, when I think about my mum, I have that bittersweet, I have loads of nice memories where we used to go on holidays every January, so I miss that part quite a lot. But in general, I think because I kind of taught how to parent myself for the last, 20 years now, I never really had a place for mum in my life, if that makes sense. I taught myself how to live through this, how to deal with this myself. So now in my daily life, I never have the thought of, I wish I could tell my mum that. It just doesn't happen, just because our relationship was so different through the years. I mean, of course, we managed to heal quite a lot of it over the last probably 10 years since I've kind of stopped being a grumpy teenager, really. I could really use a bit of empathy, try to understand things from her perspective. I mean, her life wasn't easy, absolutely not. But yeah, I think the whole point of today, I just wanted to really talk about it and just remind everyone that it's so different. All experiences are so different. There isn't a cookie cutter way to grieve for a person, how to think about them. It's all so different, and we all are on our own journey, and it's so valid and it's so normal. So please, if you feel like you're grieving not the right way, so if you feel like you're not grieving in the right way, there isn't a right way. There isn't a right way. We all grieve in a different way. We all go through our own kind of steps, our own journey. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I would really love to know what your thoughts are around this. And if you want to know a little bit more about kind of my experiences when it came to that, I also wrote a blog post a few years ago. I will link it below. You can read kind of how, just the process of my process, obviously, my way of dealing with everything. But if you are someone who's going through this, all I have to say is your feelings are so valid. The way you feel is normal for you. The way you feel is valid. Let yourself feel that. And as cliche as it sounds, it will get easier. Time heals it all. It will get easier. You will be out of this. Yeah, I just wish you all the best. I know how hard it is to be in that position. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Would love to know what you hear, so please feel free to DM me. Feel free to email me as well. Everything is linked below. And if you haven't yet, please follow me on Instagram. Also follow this podcast as well. And if you can, give me a 5-star rating. If you're using Apple Podcasts, just need to scroll down at the bottom and you'll be able to click those 5 stars. You can leave a review as well. Would really appreciate that. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we'll speak again soon. Bye.